Hi Cosmonauts, in this video I was planning to present MilkyWay, its airdrop and tokenomics in a few minutes and quickly move on to producing the next video. I thought MilkyWay was simply a liquid staking and restaking protocol that would benefit from the launch of Initia, except that in fact I wasn't ready to discover the enormous work produced by the development team. Before revealing everything to you, I'll introduce the team and present the MilkyWay empire and what I really think about it as usual. The team behind MilkyWay didn't appear overnight. David Park, one of the key members, joined the project's founder JB. David was the third employee at Cosmostation in 2017, and shortly after, JB joined them as CTO of Cosmostation. They contributed to one of the best products in the Cosmos ecosystem, if not in all of crypto, alongside the Kepler wallet and the Osmosis app. MilkyWay's founder Jay also worked in auditing, then at Tendermint Inc., where he would later meet other members with whom they would create MilkyWay, OGs who found a way to bring their expertise to tackle the challenges modular blockchains will have to face. He was already contributing to the construction of MilkyWay without knowing it during early discussions around the design of a fungible liquid staking token at various hackathons. Its application addressed the specific problem of liquid staking on Celestia. We even made a video explaining how it works. Thanks to its liquid staking solution adapted to the modular ecosystem, MilkyWay was the first version of liquid staking for TA, allowing it to gain a significant advantage over its competitors without having to spend a large portion of its tokens on incentives, as was the case for Stride. Backed by this experience, the team's leadership, the TVL, and the number of users made it easier for them to secure funding to take things to the next level. MilkyWay benefited from a $5 million seed round in April 2024, led by Binance and Polychain. MilkyWay can now reveal its true ambition to become the largest hub for liquidity and security distribution in the modular ecosystem. MilkyWay is therefore developing the means to achieve this, and for that, a new architecture is being proposed. They plan to build their app chain by relying on the best technical stack to construct their L1 with the Cosmos SDK. They are also partnering with Initia to launch in parallel a rollup specifically dedicated to the liquid staking of Init. This allows them to benefit from Initia's VIP incentives at the heart of the ecosystem, thereby boosting the adoption of all their LSTs and LRTs on Initia's native DEX. In addition to the VIP program, the Initia rollup will benefit from an extra incentive to hold MilkyWay compared to its competitors. Rollups within the ecosystem have already planned to enhance their security with Initia restaking, which will further increase the rewards for restaking TIA, DTIA, STTIA, or MilkTA. MilkyWay thus has the potential to be the first liquid staking and restaking protocol with a TVL worthy of the name in the Cosmos ecosystem. But how does its token benefit from this? MilkyWay takes a 10% fee on staking yield, which represents very attractive revenue for relatively minimal costs. MilkyWay offers liquid staking for TIA, Init, Baby, and targets the broader modular ecosystem. The MilkyWay restaking app chain benefits from close proximity to the largest POS ecosystem, professional operators available for validating consumer chains, and widely distributed and capitalized user liquidity. Ultimately, it aims to create a virtuous cycle between incentives, liquidity, and shared security. Bootstrapped by the Milk and Init incentives, the more user demand there is for its liquid staking and restaking, the more projects will be interested in the security it has to offer. And the more projects want to share their security, the greater the yield on LSTs and LRTs. A virtuous cycle, at least for the duration of a market cycle, can become a source of multi-chain revenue, allowing Milk to become a diversified bet on the success of an ecosystem. The scope of MilkyWay's domain raises a question. Is the Initia rollup really necessary if we set aside its short-term incentives? MilkyWay is both a smart contract on Osmosis for TIA liquid staking, a Cosmos chain for restaking but also for Baby liquid staking, and a layer 2 for liquid staking specifically tied to the mid-cap asset Init, which could just as well operate on layer 1 as it does for Baby using IBC transfers and ECA calls. MilkyWay's architecture is therefore complex, with 3 liquid staking issuer contracts spread across 3 blockchains, without this being justified by anything other than temporary incentives. The user experience isn't much worse since we're in the Cosmos ecosystem, but in general, the simpler a problem is solved, the better. It would be simpler and more strategic to centralize the liquid staking services on one chain that concentrates interchain liquidity and centralize its second service, restaking, on another chain for better coordination. This service dispersion is not a long-term advantage for MilkyWay. It will have to win on all fronts, while managing specific upgrade cases, security and fragmentation, alignment policies. As I mentioned in the previous MilkyWay video, the atomic synchronization of the liquid staking protocol with its main DEX is a huge advantage for the stability and efficiency of the liquid staking token. An arbitrage algorithm embedded in block transition, like Skip's protorev, will help stabilize the correlated TIA-MilkTIA pair. These arbitrage opportunities will be a source of efficiency that increases the quality of the product, meaning a strong and low volatility peg of MilkTIA to TIA, and therefore greater DeFi demand and usage for this liquid staking token. Additionally, it will provide a significant extra revenue stream for the protocol. Some say that MEV is the last remaining source of revenue for protocols, with everything else tending towards zero. The advantage of this simple architecture compared to Stride is that these arbitrages are much more profitable when executed within the block that contains the transactions creating the opportunity. Stride, being on a completely separate and independent chain, will have to let the opportunity pass, hoping no one else has taken it. It will have to let the opportunity go if the arbitrage has already been captured. In the case where the arbitrage is still available, Stride will initiate a cross-chain arbitrage only once the block is validated. Then it will perform an IBC transfer, losing another block's worth of time, and finally record the arbitrage transactions in the third block. There are also methods of asynchronous atomicity, which involve executing two transactions on different chains under conditions that guarantee simultaneous execution. But I refer you to the work of Anoma, whose project is precisely aimed at eliminating them, to avoid the enormous latency and complexity they can involve. Well, the simplest and perhaps the best way to achieve synchronous execution between applications is to have a single world computer, the one Ethereum tried to be in 2019, and that MegaETH is trying to offer again in 2025 with its extremely powerful block producer capable of absorbing global demand. Otherwise, the second solution that Vitalik envisions is distributed execution, somewhat like Cosmos, with an ecosystem of many rollups. But even back then, Vitalik pointed out the issue of cross-chain MEV, and thus foresaw a limited diversification of L2s, or L1s in our case, but we'll talk about more recent solutions shortly. We also have synchronous and atomic execution of all applications with Solana since 2021, and Solana with Jito is a good example of an environment favorable to MEV value capture by the liquid staking protocol. For now, the only ones to try something other than a world computer are Cosmos and its ultimate composability solution, Anoma, for homogeneous execution across heterogeneous chains. Among the solutions available to MilkyWay for its liquid staking and restaking, preserving the sovereignty of an app chain and the composability of a world computer, several possibilities emerge. One option is to regroup the liquid staking applications on Initia, the Initia rollup. MEV could be controlled with what's called ASS, or application-specific sequencing, and atomic synchronicity with a based rollup architecture, meaning that Initia's consensus and validators would handle MilkyWay's sequencing. For those interested in these architectural choices, it's essential to take a look at what Astria offers to Celestia's rollups. Alternatively, MilkyWay could concentrate its liquid staking on a sovereign app chain with a kind of partial set security with the Osmosis DEX blockchain to benefit from synchronous block-specific composability, just as I proposed in my first video, as a possible extension to the simple smart contract at the time. Not to mention that MilkyWay could centralize its liquid staking directly on Osmosis and continue using the sovereign MilkyWay L1 as an app chain for an interchain mesh security hub with its modular multi-asset restaking. Personally, I think MilkyWay would have been better off playing the alignment card with Osmosis, which incubated it, and proposing to be the dApp that implements the long-awaited mesh security of Osmosis. Even though there's no rush considering how important timing is for launching such a vision. The abundance of liquidity and the maturity of the Cosmos ecosystem are crucial for this product. Therefore, we must not forget that Osmosis's mesh security could become a competitor that renders MilkyWay's security intermediary obsolete. Finally, another slightly less likely possibility would be to use mega block synchronization with the Cosmos hub via ICSv1 to take advantage of the native Eureka DEX on Stride swap. Less likely, since it should be Stride deploying on Atom alongside its DEX rather than MilkyWay. The first or second solution seems the most promising to me, if you want my opinion, and if that's not the direction MilkyWay takes, here you have the keys that will allow you to identify the best next solution. Typically, Drop is a smart contract synchronized with Neutron's DeFi environment, and not an isolated app chain. Moreover, Neutron natively offers MEV capture sovereignty to its applications. MilkyWay is still young and will likely pivot toward a concentration of services. I just haven't heard about it yet, and it's not visible in their roadmap. They are building in parallel a very comprehensive restaking app chain, so I understand the choice to consolidate later and focus on the biggest task, which is honestly quite well done. But to be honest, even on the restaking side, I find the trajectory not up to par in 2025. A restaking protocol that coordinates multi-chain staking and slashing without using ZK to verify the correct execution of chains and secure interoperability. Compared to Eigenlayer, Symbiotic or Karak, there's nothing truly new here, as they themselves clearly point out in their white paper. What they seem to be aiming for is to join the category of protocols raising over 30 million with a valuation around $500 million, while pursuing a strategy of not really differentiating themselves. Well, that's my analysis of MilkyWay. To summarize, in the short term, the market underestimates the multiple incentives that could give MilkyWay a strong advantage in TVL and revenue. In the medium term, other, better constructed solutions have a higher chance of success. It doesn't exist yet, but in the long term, the development of a vault or synthetic ETFs that allow exposure to the performance of crypto leaders using liquid staking tokens to benefit from the advantages and dividends of the underlying crypto, well, that product will allow liquid staking protocols to take over the entire market share. Two things are really important for this solution. First, synchronized and atomic composability, because you can imagine the number of arbitrages per block required for an index that has to replicate the performance of the top 20 proof of stake assets. And second, a liquid staking protocol that is agnostic, something I thought Stride would be, but even now very few crypto assets, including in Cosmos, are available for liquid staking. One that one of the founders of the liquid staking concept confirmed as particularly interesting on Twitter during an exchange. It's the construction of an under-collateralized lending product based on the predictability of an address's revenue from its LST tokens, which offer liquid yield that can be used as collateral with the lender. What we're still not taking full advantage of is the fact that LSTs tokenize the yield of an asset. Teams like Prism seem to be doing a good job on that front. Now let's quickly move on to the airdrop and eligibility conditions before talking about the tokenomics. The Milk airdrop offers 100 million tokens, which corresponds to 10% of the total supply. Three categories of users are eligible: holders of M points, earned by holding Milk TIA during the campaign. We also have holders of Initia NFTs, eligible for 2,140 Milk. And finally, the top 20,000 testers of Milkinit on the Initia rollup are eligible for a portion of the airdrop. This airdrop is distributed in 4 phases to ensure alignment with the community and eliminate farmers. 20% of the airdrop is immediately available. The second portion, corresponding to 25%, will be available for those who stake more than 10 milk for 3 months. The conditions for the third and fourth parts of the airdrop have not yet been announced. They could also involve staking from the second airdrop or holding liquid staking and restaking tokens with a minimum amount. Now let's move on to the tokenomics. The core contributors, early private round investors, early supporters, community round, the foundation, and Binance account for 54% of the total supply. 10% is allocated to the airdrop, 19% to community growth through future incentives and partnerships, and finally 16.5% to ecosystem growth through restaking, incentives, grants, and AVS support. This isn't the most community-aligned tokenomics we've seen, but considering the challenges mentioned in the video, for this team, these tokenomics will be a helpful tool for development. That's it, friends. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you stayed until the end of the video, it means you're interested in more technical topics that help you make informed decisions. In that case, I invite you to watch our previous video on the different types of ZK rollups by clicking right here. See you in a moment.